Hello, I'm Keith Garvin with KPRC 2 News. Here's some of the stories making headlines. One of the 4 escaped inmates from Mississippi, 51-year-old Jerry Raines, was captured Thursday at the Memorial Hermann Hospital off the North Loop and Ella. Another inmate died after a police shootout Wednesday. 2 other escapees remain on the run. This Saturday is Missing in Harris County Day. The event aims to help families of missing persons reunite with their loved ones or find.
It's to go until the start of this draft, 28 minutes in fact, before it all gets started in Kansas City and right here at Miller Outdoor Theater. Carolina is on the clock with that #1 pick. All signals point to the Carolina Panthers selecting Alabama quarterback Bryce Young with that #1 pick. All right, let's take a look inside. Live picture now inside the VIP tent on the premises here at Miller Outdoor Theater. Just to the right of the stage, season ticket holders mingling with Texans alums, current Texans players as well. And I understand the owners, Cal and Hannah McNair, are also making their rounds as well. About 30 minutes ago, the McNairs arrived here at Miller Outdoor Theater, and I greeted them as they arrived here to the draft party. How about the excitement tonight when you come to Miller Outdoor? This was a big success last year. The crowd's going to be even bigger here tonight.
A little bit bigger, a lot of excitement, so it'll be fun. Have a great day for it. People are showing up early, and it's going to be fun.
What has this draft process meant to the both of you all since the hiring of D'Amico? It's obvious the buzz is back in the city.
I think the process you saw with D'Amico with the head coaching hire, we'll take that into the draft as well. Just really good processes in place.
We have a good time now. Wake it up.
All right, good stuff there from the McNairs. They arrived, they're excited, obviously, and so are the fans that have made it here to Miller Outdoor Theater. Again, they're expecting anywhere from 16,000 to 18,000. If you follow the Texans, you're at the games, home and away. You know who this is. This is Debbie the Texan. You are all decked out. You are ready for this big party tonight. How you feeling about it?
I'm so excited. I am extremely excited and confident that the Texans are going to do the right thing. I'm excited. I just can't wait to find out who they pick.
I want to ask you, how difficult has it been the last couple of years remaining a diehard fan like you are?
Yeah, I'm a ride or die fan. Win or lose, you know I'm at the games. It's only going to go up from here.
All right, so you're decked out every game. I mean, you got the hat, you've got the finger there, you got the jersey. How long does it take you to get ready here? This is a great outfit here.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I've got lots to choose from. It's easy, red, white, and blue.
There you go. Hey, one last question.
Yes.
The hiring of D'Amico Ryans, and you're a longtime fan. You know what he meant as a player to this organization. Now he's the head coach. As a fan, when you saw the Texans make that hire, what'd that mean to you?
That was everything. That changed all of H-Town. We are so excited. We know he wants to win. He wants to do it for Houston, and we'll be here for it.
All right, so plans tonight. You're not going to have a voice here in a little while, right?
That's right. We'll be yelling, yay!
Where are you sitting, front row?
Front row, yeah.
That's what it's all about.
Thank you.
Awesome, have fun. Debbie the Texan, one of the all-time great Texan fans.
Thank you very much. Go Texans.
Appreciate it. Always full of excitement, win or lose. She is a diehard Texans fan. All right, let's take a look at the Texans draft picks. If you don't know by now, we're going to roll out the complete list for you. The Texans, again, right now, barring any kind of trades that may go down with GM Nick Caserio between now and the time they pick, they've got 12 selections in this 3-day draft. Night 1 tonight, of course, first round, second and third rounds tomorrow. Rest of the draft coming up on Saturday. They have 5 of the first 73 picks as well. If Bryce Young is gone, which I think that he will be #1, CJ Stroud's going to be there. Will Levis is going to be there. A little bit later, Hendon Hooker might be available as well. We'll see what direction they go, or do they go defense? Bama's Will Anderson, Texas Tech's Tyree Wilson. We will find out, but there is a list for the Houston Texans in this draft. All right, so a big party going on here at Miller Outdoor Theater. It's also going down big time in Kansas City. Ari Alexander's been on the ground there at KC for the last couple of days. Let's bring in Ari now. Ari, first, kind of set the scene for us. What's it like there at the draft party in Kansas City?
Yeah, it's starting to fill up with plenty of people here. You see fans walking by, all sorts of jerseys. I'm looking right now. I got a TJ Watt Steelers, obviously a ton of Chiefs jerseys. I see a Vikings Teddy Bridgewater, Aaron Donald. Fans from all over the NFL have converged here in Kansas City for the draft. Over here on my right, I can see the theater, see the lights, everything very loud, exciting here. We're over in the media section where they will bring the players in for post-draft interviews. But in terms of what's going on in the city, it's been a smooth process. They have these prospects shuttling around. There's NFL events, which is first thing that we did when we landed yesterday, go to their community service day where they brought in all the prospects to meet with some kids and play a little flag football. Talk to us a bit. That's where we caught up with Will Anderson, Will Levis, and CJ Stroud. And then different players had different specific marketing events. For instance, Bijan Robinson popped up at a Verizon store to sign a bunch of autographs with Texas Longhorn fans. And you'll see that coming up later in the show, one-on-one, a piece of it at least, with Bijan Robinson. Caught him here in Kansas City. Other than that, the players seem more relaxed, more excited than nervous. Hung out with a number of them at their hotel here where they're going to pick up their chains. They're going to get ready for the red carpet that they just walked on before they go on that stage for the draft. And a lot of fun out here. Guys are getting ready to find out where they're going to play the beginning of their NFL career, Randy.
Hey, Ari, when you're talking with the guys, did you sense most of them don't care where they go? They just want that chance. They want to hear their name called. Or did anybody specifically point out a certain team? I think normally it seems like they stay away from that.
Yeah, the guys did stay away from pointing out any specific teams, but I think any of these guys are competitive, right? So they want to go as early as possible. Because we're Houston, I had to bring up the Texans to all of these different guys. That's the number 2 pick. As of right now, with the reporting that we have, we know the number 1 pick is Bryce Young. So the Texans are kind of the first pick that you can get. So a lot of these guys want to go there. I talked to CJ Stroud. He would love it. Talked to Will Levis. He would love it. Will Anderson, etc. All of these guys would love to go as high as possible. From what they told me, it sounds like their meetings with the Texans all went well, whether they were in person, like Zoom, whether it was back at the Combine, like Bijan Robinson told me his meeting was. The Texans seem to have made a really strong impression on a number of these prospects, and they would love to go number 2.
All right, good stuff. Hey, we've got all kinds of content in this hour-long special. It may go over an hour. We'll find out when the Texans are on the clock at number 2. But we're going to start now with my conversation, a couple of minutes worth, with NFL.com draft analyst, also ESPN 97.5 radio host, longtime host here in Houston. But he is one of the best draft analysts out there. There are a lot of guys who call themselves analysts that really don't hit the bar high, but Lance Zierlein certainly does. Here's a little bit of our conversation about the direction the Texans could take tonight.
I think it's going to end up being between 2 players, Will Anderson and Tyree Wilson. And I think, the tiebreaker could be the safer player is going to be Will Anderson. Most people are going to view it that way, Randy. But, at the same time, Tyree Wilson fits what DeMeco Ryans' defense did in San Francisco, and he might have a little bit more upside or some growth still to go from a football standpoint. If you don't love a quarterback, you can't just take a quarterback because that can really set you back another 3 to 4 years. So if you're going to take one in the first round, you better believe in him. But something else to watch, Randy, there's Mac Jones may potentially be out there for the Texans. Trey Lance could be out there for the Texans, whether it's this year or next year. So there's more than one way to find your quarterback. It's not always through the draft. I think there's a tremendous amount of pressure on him to get this right. I think last year, you ended up having the guy picked one spot after you picked. Stingley ends up becoming the defensive player of the year and an all-pro, defensive rookie of the year in Sauce Gardner. So I think that increases the pressure on Nick Caserio to get it right, which is why they may play it a little safer with Will Anderson to pick number 2. But at the same time, I think in terms of the dynamics with DeMeco Ryans, I think DeMeco has a feel for what he wants to do defensively. And Bobby Slowick comes from an offense that in some ways has some similarities to the old Gary Kubiak days. I mean, there's some similar concepts in terms of the West Coast scheme and system that where Slowick comes from at San Francisco. Of course, Kyle Shanahan called plays here with Gary Kubiak in 2009. So I think that there's a specific type of player that the Texans are going to look for offensively. So I think we'll get dialed in here philosophically on offense in what terms of what types of players you want. And then defensively, I think the same thing's going to happen.
All right, good conversation there with Lance Zierlein, NFL.com draft analyst. We're going to show you kind of a little bit of the scene here inside of Miller Outdoor Theater. You see the fans filing in. These seats are going to be filled up in the next 20 minutes or so. And those are also fans as well behind us. You can't see them yet, but we'll show them to you in a little while. On the grassy fields behind the seating here, those are filling up as well. Let's listen in now for about a minute or so to the scene here inside of Miller Outdoor Theater.
I want to hear y'all for real on this track. What's up? What y'all say? Okay, some of y'all know it. Some of y'all know it.
All right, a little bit of the scene here inside of Miller Outdoor Theater. Constantly a lot of music being played. The fans are filing in. Many are in line for concessions. They're getting their seats. In a minute, I'm going to have photographer Alex Marino pan around and we'll show you the grassy knoll area. We'll do that here in just a little bit. Let's bring in Ari Alexander again. All right, Alex is getting it right now. We'll show you right now. This is where the fans are sitting that don't have seats under the covered areas. They all brought their lawn chairs here tonight. A perfect view of the stage, and it's really filling up. And I can tell you, I was here last year, the first year here at Miller Outdoor Theater, and this crowd is already looking bigger than I saw last year around this time. And they do expect a crowd of anywhere from 16 to 18,000 here when it's all said and done tonight. Last year they had about 9,000. So that gives you an idea of the buzz really developing within the city after the hiring of DeMeco Ryans and the big news they should make in the draft tonight. Let's bring in Ari Alexander once again, live from Kansas City. Ari, initial reaction, you heard a little bit of Lance Zierlein, feeling like some pressure could be on Nick Caserio to get these picks right. He'll be making these picks alongside DeMeco Ryans, but I think he's going to have final say, and I think there's a lot of pressure that he does need to hit home run on these picks tonight.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of levels to what a general manager does. Setting the roster, getting free agents, drafting, hiring coaches, and so far Nick Caserio hasn't been good at a number of those things. The past two coaches have gone one and done. There's a really, the specific example of Derek Stingley over Sauce Gardner. Little things like that turn into big things when you make 3-4 mistakes in a row. So I do think that there is a significant amount of pressure on Nick Caserio to get it right. The Texans could have had the number 1 overall pick. They could have had Bryce Young, but of course, 4th and 26 happens. Lovey wins his last game, and now Bryce Young is likely going to be a Carolina Panther. So now you have to go and find someone else. Is it a defensive end? Is it one of Will Anderson and Tyree Wilson? Is it another quarterback, a guy like CJ Stroud, Will Levis? Is it Hendon Hooker? Is it Anthony Richardson? Is it guys that you potentially graded lower than Bryce Young when all you had to do to have Bryce Young was lose a game to the Indianapolis Colts? So yes, I do believe the pressure is on Nick Caserio. I think it helps that the Texans got their guy in DeMeco Ryans. And according to the prospects, some of the guys that I talked to, Alabama players, other guys that have gotten to meet DeMeco Ryan, get to know him a little bit, they're very excited about him as the Texans coach. They're very impressed by what DeMeco Ryans does. But in terms of needing to nail this pick, yes, they do, Randy.
All right, speaking of DeMeco Ryans, he met with the media about a week and a half ago or so over at NRG Stadium. Last week, GM Nick Caserio also spoke, so we got a couple of clips back-to-back with both DeMeco and Nick Caserio. Let's listen into those two right now.
With the quarterback position, it's all about the guy. Right? We talk about a rookie quarterback, a veteran quarterback. It doesn't matter. Like, what's the makeup of the guy? And is he worthy to start for your team? That's all that matters. Who's the best guy? Who's the right guy for our team? I let him know from the start there's no pressure. I'm not putting pressure on a guy like to come in and And just because of where you're picked in the draft, it's unfair to say that a guy is the leader of an organization and he hasn't played one snap for our team. When it comes to adding free agents to our team and also just the draft process, evaluating all the prospects within the draft, it's a lot of work, and it's great having a lot of really good people to help you out with the work. So working with Nick it's been great. Working with our coaches, right, that's been outstanding. Everybody having their input, right? Everybody's input has been valuable to me, right, to make sure that we're having a thorough process in everything that we're doing.
We've received some calls, actually, on the number 2 pick. So I think our job and responsibility is to listen, not rule anything out. If you want to quote me, are we open for business? I'd say we're open to listening. So if you want to change the vocabulary this year a little bit, but we have received a few calls. And again, I think our responsibility is to listen. Our philosophy and goal is to try to make good decisions, try to get the right players with the right traits and characteristics, bring them into our building, assimilate them to our culture, and then let the competition kind of bear itself out in terms of who's going to play. And, we don't have to play a game until September. In the end, we're just trying to put ourselves in a position to make good, sound decisions with the right people and the right players, and hopefully it gets to an end point that we can all be proud of and, happy about come draft weekend.
All right, good comments there from head coach D'Amico Ryans and general manager Nick Caserio. We'll get to Ari and Aaron Wilson in a moment, but pleasure to be joined. If you follow the Texans, you know this guy, Travis Johnson, the number 1 pick by the Texans in 2005. Hey, great to see you.
Great to see you too, Randy.
How about this atmosphere tonight?
It's so awesome, man. We got the greatest fans in all of football, and it's phenomenal to watch everybody out here on the hill. It's kind of like the Little League World Series where you see everybody out here,
right.
And everybody's real energized, and I'm energized to be out here with them.
It signifies that the buzz is back in this city. Although it's been a difficult few years, I feel like with the hiring of D'Amico, I want to ask you about that. You played with D'Amico, you know what he's all about as a player and now as a coach. What is he going to bring to this organization as a head coach?
Well, I think he brings energy. I think he brings a lot of know-how, a lot of knowledge. He's attention to detail. He's the guy who's going to have our team in the right position at all times. He's going to have guys that feed off the way he is. When I talk about Cap, he was our captain. The way he led us was by example. And I think he got everybody has to be on that same page. He's going to be a guy that leads. He knows what he did. He knows what he's done in the league, and everybody respects him.
I want to ask you, when he arrived in 2006, I've heard stories. I want you to confirm it if it's true. He immediately, as a rookie, earned the respect of a lot of guys in that locker room. How rare is that to see a rookie come in like that?
Oh, well, it was phenomenal. I mean, when you talk about all the guys in the house arrest, it was phenomenal because when D'Amico comes in, we had, at the time we signed Sam Cowart. Sam Cowart was given $1 million signing bonus. He was supposed to start a middle linebacker for us. But D'Amico Ryans in training camp just started putting people on the behind, and everybody started taking notice. All the vets, all the rookies, everybody's like, who is this guy? Where did he come from? And how did we get him in the second round?
Man, what a difference he made. He was a fun player to watch, and I know they're excited to watch him coach. And I want to ask you about tonight. We're going to find out in a little while what direction they're going. Bryce Young seems like the consensus number 1 to Carolina. As a fan and a guy who follows his team, do you think they need to go defense at number 2, or are you a believer in a CJ Stroud?
I'm not a big fan of CJ Stroud, to be honest. Hold on. Let me rephrase that. It's not that I'm not a fan of CJ Stroud. I just believe if Bryce Young is not on the board, we take defense. And then we can potentially take a quarterback. If we stay at 12, I think we get Hendon Hooker. If we trade back into the top 10, depending on what the cost is, I think we can trade up for Richardson. I think there's a lot of ways we can do it. But if we get a quarterback and a defensive lineman / outside linebacker in those first 2 picks, I think the draft in itself is a win.
I want to ask you, you mentioned Stroud. What is it you're not as fired up about to take him that early? What is it about his game you're not high on?
To me, I'm not sold on Ohio State quarterbacks.
Okay.
forgive me. You know what I mean? If the coaches are sold on them, then I'm sold on them. And so, but for me, it's looking back and saying, where's the last Ohio State quarterback to be successful?
Right.
And everybody can say, oh, Joe Burrow, but Joe Burrow wasn't Joe Burrow until he went to LSU.
That's exactly right.
You know what I'm saying? So and I don't want to, there's no knock on the kid. The thing is, I like him. I think he's a great athlete. He's a big body, strong arm.
Yeah. I'm with you. I don't think any of these guys are franchise quarterbacks. They may be all good. Even Bryce, I'm not convinced he's a franchise guy.
I'm convinced
that he's the real deal.
He's the real deal.
Okay, good.
It's a guy who's been 5'10", 5'11" his entire life.
Okay.
He's played big ball when he was in Cali. He played big ball in the SEC.
Okay.
And so a guy like him reminds me of D'Amico Ryans. And you ask why I say this. D'Amico was the SEC Defensive Player of the Year. And went in the second round because he ran a slow time at the combine, right? He didn't run as fast. He didn't look as great. But guess what? He's a football player. And I think people don't account for the fact of football players. And when you got a guy who went into the SEC, won the Heisman, and was a leader amongst all those guys who were first-round picks and everything, I think you got to respect it, and you got to take that with more than just a grain of salt.
All right, here live with Travis Johnson, 2005 first-round pick. One more question. So if they go defense number 2, you're hearing Will Anderson, you're hearing Tyree Wilson. Are you comfortable with either one? Do you have a preference?
I'm comfortable with either one. I think with Tyree, of course, you got questions about the list break injuries in his feet. With Will Anderson, I think you can't go wrong with either one, really, especially if you're confident.
Right.
If Dr. Lowe and those guys have told the Texans that those feet wouldn't be a problem, then I say go with him because it's hard to pass him on 6'6" and a freak of an athlete. But at the same time, Will Anderson, man, if you can last and be seen in the Nick Saban defense and play the way he's played, you can only be excited about what he's going to do in the NFL.
Very good. Great insight from Travis Johnson. Travis, thanks for the time, my man.
Thank you, bro.
Have a great time tonight.
You too. See you at HEB.
There you go. That's right. He's my neighbor. We run into each other quite a bit. Travis Johnson hanging out with us, the 2005 first-round pick for the Houston Texans, 16th overall, and an ambassador now with this organization. All right, let's keep going on now. We're inching closer to the top of the hour. Still a ways to go until that first-round pick. Let's bring back Ari Alexander live in Kansas City. And also, for the first time, let's bring in our Texans insider for Click2Houston.com, Aaron Wilson. Aaron is live at NRG Stadium. Guys, welcome in. Hey, let's have some fun. We got a lot to talk about tonight.
Absolutely, Randy. Yeah, it's an exciting night for the Texans. Okay, they've got a lot on the line. When you think about Randy and Ari, this is a draft. They've got to get it just right, and they've got to be able to adapt and pivot with Bryce Young now headed to the Panthers. And the Texans, they're in a spot where they can still get a quarterback. I was told today, do not rule out the possibility of CJ Stroud, despite them being kind of cool on him throughout this draft process. They are doing a lot of due diligence in recent days on CJ Stroud, and there's scenarios where they would try to get the pass rusher and the quarterback, either Will Anderson or Tyree Wilson, and CJ Stroud. Take some maneuvering, and there's other teams that want CJ Stroud, including the Tennessee Titans, who may try to move up to get the Ohio State quarterback.
All right, Aaron, good stuff there. And hey, guys, let's talk about, we're going to pop up a graphic now, and we'll do this over several positions. Let's take a look at the top quarterback prospects. We got a full screen graphic we're going to show so everybody watching can get a grasp of really the top 5 guys that everybody's talking about. Bryce Young, CJ Stroud out of Ohio State, Will Levis out of Kentucky, Anthony Richardson, an intriguing prospect, still a little bit raw, coming out of Florida, and Hendon Hooker out of Tennessee, coming back from that ACL, but a guy that a lot of teams like right now as well. Before we break down each player, guys, just what do you think looking at this list of 5, and Ari, I'll start with you, this group of 5 quarterbacks, does anybody stand out among the others to you?
Well, Bryce Young, I think, stands out significantly about the others because he's just the most put-together prospect, the safest pick, a guy that I think you can rely on to come in and run an NFL offense immediately, start week one, and that's exactly what the Texans needed. That's not going to happen. So failing that, now you got to look at the other 4 players with the 3 that are generally rated a little bit above Hendon Hooker. Which one of these 4 guys, the left, can run that offense week one? Because I really don't think Texans fans definitely agree with me here. You want to trot out Davis Mills week one. So you look at Will Levis, a guy who has the big arm, who's got the big body, but had some accuracy issues, had some decision-making issues. Is he a guy that's going to need to sit 4 or 6 weeks to figure out that offense and make the right decisions? Anthony Richardson is known to be a very raw prospect, low completion percentage in college, which usually doesn't translate, but he's obviously got the highest physical ceiling and could turn into a superstar. That's another guy you're going to have to wait on as he gets better and starts to learn that offense. So then you come down to Hendon Hooker, a guy who's about 25 years old. He's coming off an ACL. Will he be ready? Is he another guy that you're going to have to wait? CJ Stroud feels like the quarterback out of that group who's most ready to start week one. So if I had to pick out of that group of 4 short term, feels like to me CJ Stroud. Long term, it's anybody's guess because you know how hard it is to evaluate quarterbacks.
Hey, Aaron, let's dive in first, player by player. I want to begin with Bryce Young, and we'll show some pictures while you're breaking him down as well. What do you like most about Bryce Young? People talk about his lack of size, can he be durable, but he's a consensus #1 pick, it looks like, to Carolina here in a matter of minutes.
Right, Randy. He's the Panthers' franchise quarterback immediately. And what I like about him, he's got a little bit of that small man Steph Curry dynamic, electric ability to him, and it kind of transcends the size, the lack thereof. So you look at Bryce, anticipation, good instincts. You wish his arm was a little stronger. Of course you wish he was bigger, but he may be one of those exceptions, a small quarterback like a Drew Brees or a Kyler Murray that can still excel in the NFL despite not having the physical prototype that you want.
Do you feel like he's a day one starter in Carolina, or do you think it might be a little bit of time before he's ready to go? What do you think?
I think he's going to be plug and play pretty quickly. He's very advanced in his knowledge of pro-style offense, and I think that he won't have a big learning curve. He's a very smart young man. He was the highest scorer on the S2 cognitive test. He did great on the Wonderlic. And he's just one of these guys that has a personality. He loves football. He's a gym rat. He's always going to be there working. I don't bet against Bryce Young. And it's too bad for the Texans fans and the Texans organization that he will not be a Texan. His visit, basically a waste of time when he came in because the Panthers had already locked in and they'd already lost the opportunity to draft him because of the last game that Ari referenced and a Bears trade that didn't work out.
All right, good stuff, Aaron. Hey, let's move along to our next prospect, CJ Stroud. And Ari, I'm going to start with you, and then Aaron, you weigh in after Ari as well. Let's talk about CJ Stroud. We're going to roll some video, Ari, and here's a guy coming out of the Big Ten, Ohio State. Travis just told us he's not wild about Ohio State quarterbacks in the style of offense that they run, yet he put up big numbers, over 8,000 yards and 85 touchdowns. If he doesn't go to the Texans, it's not going to take long before a team snatches CJ Stroud.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely that history of Ohio State quarterbacks. The Justin Fields, who's just sort of now trying to find his way as a Chicago Bears quarterback. Cardale Jones, JT Barrett, I get it. CJ Stroud has the physical tools to play in the NFL. The thing is that the Texans are looking at some of these other teams. There are a lot of things that came out this last week or two, whether that's professional subterfuge or things like that, or whether those are serious concerns remains to be seen as he takes the field in the NFL. But before these last few weeks of the draft and before Anthony Richardson really shot up boards and Will Levis shot up boards, it felt like it was 1-2 very close between Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. And it feels like these last couple weeks now, knowing that Young is going to be the pick at 1, there's been a big separation between those two guys. And you kind of got a feel for CJ Stroud, who had this excellent career at this powerhouse program at Ohio State. And it's like, what more do I need to do? And that was sort of the vibe I got a little bit from his end. I talked to him a bit yesterday when he was at the community day, and he's still got that confidence. He said, I think I'm the best quarterback in this draft, knowing that he's likely not going first, but he believes coming out of this draft, he's still the best guy. It could be a very short day for him if the Texans decide to pull the trigger, or as Aaron was mentioning, the possibility that there's a trade-up between Tennessee and the Cardinals, and the Titans could hand the keys over to CJ Stroud long-term as Ryan Tannehill's career seems to be winding down in Tennessee. But I think here's a guy who can play in the league. It's just, can you learn these offenses and be put in the right situation to succeed? Because we know how much of that matters. Can you be put somewhere where you feel comfortable to run that offense and be the leader of that locker room?
Hey, Aaron, let's move on now on to Will Levis now, the quarterback out of Kentucky. I want to get your take on what you've been hearing on Will Levis. He's a big-bodied guy, put up over nearly 6,000 yards and 46 touchdowns. Good size. He's got a gun for an arm. He will proudly admit what he has as well. He's not lacking confidence. Is this a guy that the Texans could target? If not, where do you see him going?
Right, Randy, he has an absolute cannon for an arm. But no, I do not think that he will be a Texan. In fact, I'll pretty authoritatively say he will not be a Texan at 2 or at 12. This isn't their guy. And it doesn't have anything to do with the personality. I know some people have mentioned that during the draft process. It has more to do with the film and the footwork and the interceptions and a lack of consistency that Will Levis has displayed in the Southeastern Conference. Couldn't beat out Sean Clifford at Penn State. And even though he's a great potential in terms of arm strength, I like his mobility, and I like the cockiness, the brashness. That doesn't turn me off at all. The teams are okay with it. This looks like a pretty raw quarterback that's got a lot of development to do, and I do not believe he'll be a Texan at all.
All right, let's keep it moving. Next quarterback prospect, I believe it's going to be on our board, Hendon Hooker now. Ari, I'll begin with you on Hooker. Projected as a first or second round pick. He's got a couple of years at Tennessee, really excelled in that offense with the Volunteers after transferring in. He's got that ACL he's battling back from. I'm curious if this is a guy the Texans could maybe be targeting, maybe at 12, or if they trade into late first round for that 33rd pick. What are your thoughts on Hooker? He's about a year older than some of these guys, a little bit more mature, but that injury's kind of hanging out there. He won't be ready to play really at training camp till August anyway.
Yeah, I don't necessarily have strong opinions about Hooker specifically, but it's rather the value of Hooker and the value of getting a quarterback that you might be able to replace Davis Mills with short-term during the season at some point, making sure you know that ACL is healthy, making sure he knows the offense. I think it does help, honestly, a little bit that he's a little older. He's been around. He's been in different systems. He was at Virginia Tech first, then he was at Tennessee. He did a great job of picking up the system at Tennessee and put up huge numbers in the SEC. He's played tough competitions. He's torched really, really good defenses. The connection between him and receiver Jalen Hyatt was excellent this season. And then, of course, it's unfortunate not only did he get hurt, but that he got hurt late in the year, and so that recovery time just gets pushed back. I think it's all about value when it comes to Hendon Hooker. If you take him at 12, I don't know. Could have you gotten a better football player at 12? If you trade back into the first round from 33 to 23, get rid of some of your other of that 12 picks that you have throughout this weekend, then I'm starting to feel a little better about it, where the Texans get that high-end defensive end at 2, you get someone else at 12, let's say a wide receiver, because that's a position in need, and then you trade back in, and you still get your quarterback. You get your cake, you get your pie, and then you eat all of it too and get a brownie. That's how I would feel if you get Hooker late in the first round. For me, about him, it's less about him and more about the value of where you can get him.
Yeah, I agree with you, Ari. I think Hooker is a big-time talent. But if you're going to get him at 12, I think that's a little risky. I think that's too high. I think if you're available, it's sitting at 12, and you've taken a defensive guy, I'm all about a wide receiver at that point, and there'll be a couple of wide receivers on the board. Last quarterback prospect, Aaron, if you can, let's bring up some pictures of Anthony Richardson, the quarterback out of Florida. Big-bodied guy, still considered a little bit raw, a guy that actually it might take a year, maybe even 2 years before Anthony Richardson would even be ready to play in the National Football League. You see some of the numbers he put up in Florida. Thoughts on Anthony Richardson, Aaron? What kind of chance do you take on a kid like this?
Right, he's on a different stratosphere athletically, Randy. When you think about this guy, a better athlete than Cam Newton, Tim Tebow, he's a bigger Michael Vick kind of guy. This is outstanding as a dual threat quarterback, but he is very raw. He's a 50% passer. I know that his receivers dropped a lot of those throws because they're not very good. That said, they didn't even do a visit or a workout. There's no secret Anthony Richardson thing, I'm told. The Texans are not in on Anthony Richardson. Many other teams do love Anthony Richardson, but they're not one of them. He just doesn't fit their offense, they feel. And, yeah, to only do a Zoom with Anthony doesn't indicate a lot of interest. It's not like other positions or quarterback. You need to get him in the building, have him meet with your offensive coordinator, Bobby Slowick, and get on the whiteboard. And they didn't do any of those things. Hendon Hooker, the last quarterback we talked about, much better chance of being a Texan than Anthony Richardson, who I'd say has zero chance.
All right, good stuff, Aaron. Hey, we're going to take about a 45-second peek in again before we talk defense on what's happening on stage. Our photographer, Alex Marino, getting a look on stage. The Texans cheerleaders on the stage. Listen in for about 45 seconds.
Hands up if you feel that. I ball hard like a Texan. Everybody you already know what I'm talking about.
All right, some entertainment here at Miller Outdoor Theater. That is Slim Thug on the stage here with the Texas cheerleaders. I don't know much about the Slim Thug, but Ari, I know you do, and you would be a big fan of his, I would imagine, right?
Still good?
Yes. Our good friend of the program, Slim Thug. I was a little jealous that you were there because I saw the lineup of guys. Friend of the program, Paul Wall, who, by the way, still owes me a grill. Paul, you know. And then Bun B, who's got the Trill Burgers brick and mortar store coming out. Those burgers are delicious. And, of course, you know the vibes, Randy. Bun B, friend of the program.
Absolutely, and I want a Trill Burger. I've got to try one of those things. Very highly
the onions
rated,
on it, phenomenal.
Okay, good tip right there. All right, they are booing for some reason. I'm not sure who they're booing here. Oh, it's Roger Goodell. He's on the stage as the draft program is underway, so nobody likes Roger Goodell, right? All right, guys, let's move on to the top defensive line and edge prospects as well. Let's begin, and Aaron, we'll start with you. Will Anderson. Let's take a look at the list first. Will Anderson, Tyree Wilson, Jalen Carter, Brian Brisset, and Lucas Van Ness as well. Let's begin. We got some video of Will Anderson. Many believe he's going to be the guy at number 2. What do you like most about him, Aaron?
Right. I love the consistency. I love the motor, Randy. I love how relentless he is, how tough. And I like that he's just a very clean grade. When I say clean, I mean on and off the field. There's no difference. Everything about him is all football, and he's a high-character guy. He's got a toolbox of moves. He's got a proven repertoire that worked in the Southeastern Conference. You wish he was a little bigger. You wish he played the three-point. Those are a few of the minor dings. You kind of have to almost search for the downside with Will Anderson Jr. And I can tell you, if they pick him, they will not regret it. I think he will be at least a solid guy, 8 to 10 sacks per year if you draft him and plug him in.
All right, Tyree Wilson also on the list. That's a name that many believe the Texans are interested in. Ari, let's begin with Tyree, the defensive lineman out of Texas Tech. We all know about his talent, but you see all the reports coming out. There might be some concerns still by some teams about that Liz Frank foot injury that Travis Johnson was talking about. Do the Texans take a chance on that?
It just depends on how much injury risk you can weather based on how deep that position is, first of all. And I think immediately it's not that shallow. You still have Jerry Hughes. You still have Jonathan Grenard. Of course, you're going to need to plan for the future. Of course, defensive ends, edge rushers are important. And if you get a guy like Tyree Wilson, like Will Anderson, you're expecting production 3, 4, 5 years in a row down the line. You can maybe take a little bit of that risk knowing that year one, what if he misses time, but you still have some other edge rushers, you still have some other defensive ends, but you got to look at it. You got to see, is that foot injury something that's recurring? Is it something that out of the first year could happen again? With Will Anderson, like Aaron was mentioning, there's a little bit less injury history, but there's also just a difference in body type. We were with Tyree last night as he was picking up his jewelry. He's physically imposing and physically impressive. He is massive. He's 6'5", 275 listed. He's large in person. That's what you want as a defensive end, right? Big, scary, fast, athletic. That's what he is. So all about that for the Texans is you just drafted a cornerback who's known of having a risky injury history in Derek Stingley. Do you have the tolerance for injury risk to draft another player who might have some of that injury risk? Those are the questions that Nick Caserio, the D'Amico Ryans, that the McNairs need to go over before they make that pick.
All right, yeah, he's versatile too. He can hop around on that defensive line. Let's move on to Jalen Carter now. Aaron, let's break Jalen Carter down as well. Looking at various mock drafts, some of them have him going very early. Some of them have him sliding a little bit as well. Still early in the first round, but it's been kind of up and down the board. What about Jalen Carter, and what are you hearing about him and what he can help and how he can help a football team?
Right, Randy, one of the most disruptive interior linemen to enter the NFL in years. And what Jalen Carter lacks off the field is really the consistency and the behavioral things you'd hope to see for a guy that's going to represent your organization. And I'm not only talking about the car accident and the racing, and he's dealt with that legally, and that's a very unfortunate, tragic situation that he was involved in. But there's other things about laziness, about work habits, and about partying and having too much fun and not being mature. And those are things that have a high bust factor attached to his name, meaning he will not make it potentially. It's a concern that he gained weight. He was overweight for the pro day. And he's someone I would worry about, but I think he'll still be drafted high and have enough potential that he'll show and justify the pick. Seahawks, for me, that is his ceiling. Basement, Philadelphia Eagles, I believe.
All right, very good, Jalen Carter. Those are three great players on the D-line, edge rush help as well. I think many believe it to be Will Anderson that goes number 2, but I can't tell you right now, Carolina is now officially on the clock. The draft is underway, and we'll see how long they take. Each team gets about 10 minutes to make their pick. It's a consensus belief that Carolina has made their decision several days ago, although Bryce Young didn't really admit anything when he spoke yesterday. It sounds like Carolina will take Bryce Young, quarterback out of Alabama. All right, let's move on to wide receivers now, guys. Let's take a look at the big board, the top prospects. When it comes to receivers that are going to be available in this NFL draft, Quentin Johnson as well from TCU, big-time player. Jackson Smith-Njigba from Ohio State. Zay Flowers, Boston College. Jordan Addison from Southern Cal. Jalen Hyatt, wide receiver from Tennessee. All right, let's start. Let's talk a little bit about Quentin Johnson and what he brings to the table. Good size, good speed, good hands. He really excelled the last 2 seasons at Texas Christian.
Yeah, he's a guy that played at a high level in the Big 12 for a team that went very, very far this year. TCU has a great history of just general athleticism. A team that there are years where they overachieve and there are years they underachieve as a football team in the Big 12. But when it comes to the talent that they attract to Fort Worth there, they have phenomenal players at every position. They get Texas football players. They get guys who are big, strong at every level, receivers and corners, and they're always big and physically imposing as a football team, and that's why even in years that they don't do very well, they still get a ton of guys drafted in the NFL. I remember that a few years ago when the Texans took Ross Blacklock. They're like a 5-6, 5-7 team. They had like 6 guys go in the top 40, and it's like, how does this team have a losing record when you have this much NFL talent? And so with Quentin Johnston, he's a big body. He is a red zone target for whatever potential quarterback the Texans could bring in. It would be interesting to see whether or not you go with maybe a safer slot choice that, like Jackson Smith-Njigba versus a Quentin Johnston, a guy who might have a wider variety of where his career would end up. But there are guys in the league, these big physically imposing receivers. Good example of this, Mike Evans out of Texas A&M, the Bucs, a potential Hall of Famer. He's big. He's a guy who can post you up, and you just got to hope that Quentin Johnston is a guy like that who can maybe immediately be a red zone target and then work on some of the other things and become a complete receiver for you.
I really like what he brings to the table. He was a fun player to watch for TCU, did some damage there in the Big 12, and I don't think anybody's going to disagree if he's available perhaps at number 12. All right, Jackson Smith-Njigba from Ohio State. Aaron, let's talk with you now about the Ohio State wide receiver. I saw several interviews with him. Really humbled kid, believes in the talent he can bring to any football team. He feels like he's the best receiver in this whole group. What do you think?
I agree with him, Randy. He's one of the smoothest wide receivers coming to the league in the last couple of years. He runs pinpoint routes, has great hands. Just ask everyone up in the Dallas area what he did at the high school level. Outstanding, just stellar. Him and Marvin Mims, who's from Frisco, Oklahoma receiver. These guys are some of the best in the state of Texas. We know how good high school football is here. And he proved it again at Ohio State. And I like this player a lot. I feel like the concerns about a hamstring, I don't worry about that. He was healthy, had a great body of work, and he is someone that you put in there, you've got a wide receiver one. In many opinions, the only number one wide receiver and guy worthy of a first-round grade. Some others will go in the first round, possibly Zay Flowers, possibly Jordan Addison, Quentin Johnston as well. But this is by far the best wide receiver on every consensus draft board.
All right, let's move along with these other 3 receivers. I'll tell you, we're about 4 minutes out. If they take the full 10 minutes from Carolina making that number 1 selection, when that happens, the Texans will be on the clock at number 2. All right, let's move along. Zay Flowers from Boston College now. I'll be honest, I don't know a lot about him. I know he's got talent and good athleticism as well, but Ari, does anything about his game stand out as a guy that could be somebody the Texans are interested in perhaps at 12, or is he further down?
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't necessarily know a whole lot of details about his game or watch a ton of Boston College ACC football. However, what we know is more about the Texans and their needs. We know that they need a receiver. They know that they are not deep enough at receiver, and whatever quarterback they potentially draft needs more targets and more athletic, stronger targets for the Texans to be able to succeed this year. If you believe that Zay Flowers is a first-round grade, I do think based on what I've seen where his mock draft positioning is, what I've heard from people around the league is that 12 is maybe a little bit high for him. 12 is maybe a little bit high for Addison. 12 is maybe a little bit high for all of these receivers other than Jackson Smith-Njigba, although I do believe the Texans need a receiver within those first 3 picks. If your choices are just one of those 5 guys, I believe that makes it relatively difficult when you're looking at the grades and only one of those 5 guys stands out as a potential top 15 pick. So you look at the guys like Jalen Hyatt, slight of frame, very fast. Is he a guy that can get in? Jordan Addison, of course, great production. Also, I saw him at the community service event. He's not that big of a guy. So you're looking at a number of factors of guys that maybe aren't really perfect prospects. And so that's something where you maybe look at those guys, maybe look at some of the 3rd, 4th round receivers and see if you can find a diamond in the rough, because we know throughout the history of the league, now obviously there's all these superstar guys like the Justin Jeffersons and Jamar Chases, but there are a ton of useful NFL receivers that you can just grab in the 4th and 5th round, and this guy turns out better than the draft grade was put on them.
All right, Jordan Addison now, Aaron, real quick. We understand the pick is in. As soon as we have it, we'll announce it as well. Jordan Addison from Southern Cal, Aaron. He put together a couple of back-to-back years, pretty impressive. 59 catches, 875 yards. And that followed a 100-catch season, over 1,500 yards in 2021. What do you like about Jordan Addison wherever he falls?
Really polished route runner, really good pass catcher. He's got strong hands, good body control. He's someone that you can count on to get open, find space in the zone, and do what it needs to be done in terms of yards after the catch. He's got a few moves in the open field. You wish he was a little faster, but he's a good enough athlete. I see him having a lot of production in the National Football League.
All right, good stuff, Aaron. Just moments ago, about 15 seconds ago, as expected, Carolina making the #1 pick, and they indeed make Alabama quarterback Bryce Young their quarterback, their pick, #1 overall. Guys, initial reaction to that, because everybody here, these fans that are here watching this draft party, know it could have been the Texans up there #1 if they hadn't won that last game of the season. What do you think?
It could have definitely been Bryce Young, Randy. And you think about how this went down. They could have had him if they'd lost the game. They could have had him if they had traded the 2nd and the 12th pick to the Bears. They were a little slow on that. The Bears moved on. There was a counteroffer of next year's first rounder. The Bears didn't want that. They made a blockbuster deal. And now Bryce Young, the Heisman winner from Alabama, is a Panther, and we're going to see how he does. I think he's going to do very well in the league.
Texans, they have not started the clock for the Texans right now, but Bryce Young on stage with Commissioner Roger Goodell. They're going to be on the clock here in a matter of minutes. I believe we're going to go to running backs, and before we break down each running back, Tiffany, I believe we have some sound with Ari and Bijan Robinson. If we do, let me know when that's ready. We'll pitch to that, and then we'll break down some of these running backs. Let's talk about the Texans now, guys. They're going to be on the clock. #2. Are y'all expecting any kind of shocker right here, or do you think it's going to go defense? Ari, we'll start with you.
I'm not necessarily expecting a shocker. I think they go after one of these two defensive ends, Will Anderson and Tyree Wilson. It just depends, how frisky is Nick Caserio feeling right now? How frisky is D'Amico Ryans feeling right now? Do you go with the safe choice with Will Anderson, or do you go with the 6'5", 275-pound imposing monster that is Tyree Wilson, knowing that he might be a little less polished than Anderson and that potential for a foot injury? Just depends how risky you want to get with this second pick, knowing that this is a franchise that needs attention, that needs the fans to come back, that needs to start winning and start building a new generation of fans, Randy.
All right, we'll talk more about the Texans once they are on the clock. They're not on the clock yet, but Ari, I'm going to hand it to you real quick because you had a chance to spend some time with Bijan Robinson yesterday. Talk about that and lead a part of your interview with him.
Yeah, Randy, we talk about Bijan Robinson all the time on Sports Sunday, and you guys kind of joke around with me about hyping him up too much. Through this pre-draft process and through this NFL draft, the red carpet, all the things, I think a lot of people have now fallen in love with Bijan Robinson. I would be shocked if he doesn't go in the top 15 or 16, despite the fact that running backs have been devalued in the NFL and definitely have been devalued in the draft. I've known Bijan since he was a freshman in high school at South Point Catholic High School in Tucson, Arizona. He was just always so impressive both on and off the field. I joke around about his average high school game was like 16 carries, 220 yards, and 4 touchdowns at half, and then they'd take him out because they'd be beating teams by 5-6 touchdowns. He's a kid that did great at Texas, won the Doak Walker, and got a ton of attention for NIL because off the field, he does charity work, and he's got all of these different endorsement deals. I talked to him a little bit about that. Plenty of other things. You can find the full interview on click2houston.com. Oh, and it looks like our pick is in for the Texans, and we'll talk about Bijan later. Randy, I'm going to send it back to you.
Don't send it back to me yet.
All right, thanks a lot. Yeah, thanks a lot, Ari. All right, so we understand the pick is in. They have not announced it yet on NFL Network, but right now they're interviewing Bryce Young. If we can, Tiffany, let us know if we got that other camera up. at the Texans tent, and we will go to that as well while we wait. But all the Texans fans are standing here inside of Miller Outdoor Theater. You're looking live inside of the VIP area here at Miller Outdoor. That would have been a very quick time on that clock for the Texans. Indeed, the pick is in, and we're going to stay with this if we can. I'm going to have photographer Alex Marino just pan, and we're going to let the fan reaction kind of tell you the story. We can't show you the network video. We're just going to show you the fan reaction, and we'll come back live with my photographer Alex Marino. Right now you see D'Amico Ryans on the phone, Nick Caserio also in the backdrop. That's over at NRG Stadium. Fans waiting for this pick to come in. We'll see how long it takes for the announcement to actually take place, but this is the fun part. We'll have a wide shot of the fans here, and once that pick is made, you'll see the reaction on who they take. I'll lay out here for just a few seconds. The anticipation is certainly building here at Miller Outdoor Theater. Again, we've talked about the defensive help that's out there and available. Will it be Will Anderson, Tyree Williams? Could they go with CJ Stroud and pull off the shocker? Listen in here to Miller Outdoor Theater.
CJ Stroud.
There is the reaction. How about that surprise here on draft night? CJ Stroud taken by the Texans with the number 2 overall pick. This is the reaction here at Miller Outdoor Theater. Fans up on the grassy knoll, they're excited about it. Many believe that CJ Stroud's stock had fallen, but the Texans obviously believed he would be the answer. The quarterback from Ohio State University. All right, quite the reaction here at Miller Outdoor Theater. The fans are very happy with that result. But hey, it's a surprise because many had the Texans not being really high on CJ Stroud, but inside that building, it's obvious how they felt about the Ohio State quarterback. You know, would they preferred Bryce Young? You can only speculate and assume Bryce Young was going to be their guy. But CJ Stroud available at number 2. They could have gone defense. Now you expect that's the direction they go after making this pick. Let's bring in Ari Alexander. When Aaron Wilson is available, we'll bring him in as well for some instant reaction to this pick. CJ Stroud, the Ohio State quarterback. He felt all along he was the best quarterback in this group. Ari, what do you think of the Texans pick at number 2?
Well, Randy, it's definitely interesting and it's exciting, and this is how you get the fans back in the building with a franchise quarterback, or at least a quarterback that you believe will be the franchise quarterback. CJ Stroud put up the numbers at a power program at Ohio State. He has the pedigree, he has the arm, he has all of the talent, all of these late things that came out about him. Those are potential factors as he starts his NFL career, but the Texans saw what they saw on tape and went for a guy that always looked looked good playing on the field. I talked to CJ Stroud yesterday. He told me he believes he's the best quarterback in this draft. I ran into CJ Stroud earlier today as he was picking up his jewelry. He seemed a little bit nervous about what would happen, and you got to feel for CJ Stroud, got to feel good for him now, knowing that there's nothing to be nervous about anymore. You are the number 2 pick in the draft. You're going to a Houston Texans team who is going to build around you as the franchise quarterback. So to CJ Stroud, welcome to Houston. The fans are ready to get behind their new QB, Randy.
I mean, Ari, this place exploded when they made that selection. These fans wanted it to happen. You're now seeing on NFL Network a really emotional CJ Stroud after he spoke just moments ago on stage. It's really hitting home to CJ Stroud that he was taken right after Bryce Young, number 2. This is a guy that, again, believes he was the number 1 quarterback in this class coming out. He wants to win. He just spoke in his interview about being the ultimate teammate. It's all about team first for CJ Stroud. So, as soon as we get Aaron Wilson, we'll bring him in before we close it out. So now you've got CJ Stroud, Ari. You've got Davis Mills. You've got Case Keenum, 3 quarterbacks. Now the question will be, how long will it take for CJ Stroud to come in, learn this offense, adapt to the way Bobby Slowick wants to run things, and how long will it take for him to step in and become a starting quarterback for the Texans?
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, Randy, if I'm a Texans fan and week 1 comes and CJ Stroud is not starting, I would be furious. There's no reason to take a guy number 2 overall to be your franchise quarterback and not start him, obviously barring injury or any, some sort of outside factor. But this is why you get him, so that Davis Mills does not start week 1, so that you sink in the effort and the belief in a guy like CJ Stroud, who has earned it throughout his college playing career at Ohio State. I think he's got to be ready. He needs to come in and put in the work, knowing the system and knowing what to run to be the number 2 overall pick to start week 1. And at the same time, the Texans need to do whatever it is they can to make sure that he is ready for a week 1 start for the Houston Texans. Because I think if I'm a Texans fan and it's week 1 and they're running out Davis Mills, I would not be happy with that choice.
All right, we got some breaking news right now. The Texans have just traded up to number 3 with Arizona. How about that? They're going to pick again at number 3. And right now, they're looking inside NRG Stadium. It's all smiles from D'Amico Ryans, GM Nick Caserio. The trade has been completed. Number 12, the Texans had the number 12 pick. The trade has been made with Arizona. Let's get a look at the fan base right now. As they wait now, the Texans are going to be on the clock again. And we'll see if they go defense. Perhaps Will Anderson, Tyree Wilson. We're going to find out in a matter of moments what direction they go.
It looks like the Texans will be taking Will Anderson per our own Aaron Wilson. We would bring him in, but he's, doing the breaking news thing. That means that the Texans worked to get back-to-back picks. And we talked about you have to get a quarterback, you have to get your high-end edge rusher, and they worked it out. They made it happen. They got both of them back-to-back with CJ Stroud and Will Anderson. This is the type of excitement that you want for a team who's trying to dig out of a 4-3 win season. This is the type of excitement that will bring fans back to NRG Stadium, and so far an offseason for a team who has been much maligned by outside factors, by fans within Houston, fans outside of Houston, the league for an organization that seemed to have lost its way, at least right now on draft day, and I know we're only through 3 picks. Texans so far seem to have won the day. You got your quarterback, you got your defensive end, you got 2 high-level players, arguably the best defensive end in all of college football the past couple of seasons, arguably one of the best quarterbacks in college football for the past 6-7 years. You got them both. This is a win for the Texans, Aaron. Randy?
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, the pick is in right now. We're going to get the shot right now. Fan reaction to the number 3 pick.
With the 3rd pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Houston Texans select Will Anderson.
All right, there you have it. How about that news from the Houston Texans dominating early in this first round? They pick number 2. They take CJ Stroud. They make the trade. We told you about that throughout the day, that was the hot rumor nationally, that they might be making a deal with the Arizona Cardinals. All the prognosticators out there indicating a trade could be in play with Arizona, who was willing to trade back to number 12. That went down. And how about that? Back-to-back, they get a quarterback, CJ Stroud. They get their edge rusher in Will Anderson as well. I'm going to try to get some fan reaction as well on this news by the Texans. You're live right now on KPRC Channel 2. Initial reaction on these 2 picks.
It's a miracle! It's a miracle!
What about CJ Stroud and Will Anderson?
Both great picks. Both great picks. We're going to do something now. It's time. I've been season ticket holders since day 1. It just made my day.
There you go. These fans weighing in so far on their great picks. How do you guys like the pick? Hop on real quick. We're live now. We're live.
Everybody that left us, we back, baby. Greatest pick ever. This is the greatest draft.
How about the trade? How about the trade to go back to back?
Great trade. The best thing that can do. We back. Everybody that left, stay over there. We're officially back. Stay over there. We stay true.
There you go. Happy fans here at Miller Outdoor Theater. Let's bring in Ari and let us know when Aaron Wilson is back with us before we wrap it up tonight. Ari, how about that news? Back-to-back, the Texans stealing the headlines here in the NFL Draft.
Yeah, I love the guy you just talked to just shouting, "It's a miracle," over and over again. That's the type of reaction that you want from fans if you're the Houston Texans. As a joke, I was just rolling through my Twitter to see what else is going on around here, and just saying, man, they're going to get so many A's on the draft grades because this is a splash. This is a big move. I just checked my phone and had 4 different text messages from people within the league, and there were just fans just said, wow. I had like 4 Owen Wilsons just going, wow. Like, look at that. Look at those picks. Look at that. They got their quarterback. They still got Will Anderson. They went back-to-back at 2 and 3. Obviously, it's going to take a while to figure out how good these players actually are on an NFL field. But in terms of on paper, the splash that you've made, I don't know what else is going to happen the rest of this first round. You are not beating what the Houston Texans just did.
Tell you what, Ari, I'm not ruling out even another trade because you and I both know, hey, they're 33 right now in the second round. That's a pretty good spot to be in that another team may want. Who knows what they're talking about back at NRG Stadium right now regarding the number 33 pick. Maybe another deal could be coming. We don't know, but maybe to get late in the first round to possibly get another player. We'll see if that plays out. How crazy would that be if that goes down?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, if you're going to do that, you trade up for a wide receiver. The good thing is that, as we talked about earlier, these receivers don't necessarily all have a first-round grade. Depending on who you like out of that back group of that second 4 guys, that group of 4 guys outside of Jackson Smith-Njigba, who I think is going to go top 15, top 18, you might have your pick. You might like Jordan Addison and he could fall to 33, or Zay Flowers, who may be less likely, or you like Quentin Johnson, that big body. There's a chance you could still get your receiver at 33 without having to trade in. Obviously, we'll see if there's a run on receivers mid to late in the first round that could force the Texans' hand, but I think that's where your pick is next. We've sort of been on it in terms of what they're doing from a position standpoint. You need your quarterback, check. You need your edge rusher, check. Now you need your wide receiver, Randy.
Hey, Ari, we're going to wrap it up, but this news just in. I want to give you some details on this trade the Texans made with the Cardinals. So the Cardinals got the number 12 pick for the Texans. They also got the Texans' 33rd pick. So we were just talking about that second round pick. The Texans gave that up to move up to number 3. The Cardinals also get the Texans' first round pick in 2024 and also a third round pick in 2024 as well. The Texans got that number 3 pick. They also get pick number 105 in the draft as well. So those are the particulars in that trade that went down. So we're going to wrap it up from Miller Outdoor Theater. Ari, good stuff from Kansas City. I know you're going to work it there in KC. We'll have more coming up later tonight on KPRC 2 at 10. Ari Alexander live in Kansas City. Aaron Wilson live from NRG Stadium. He's writing as we speak for Click2Houston.com. Any final thoughts, Ari, before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I think it's a big trade in terms of you got second and third overall pick. You got your 2 guys that you wanted. Feels like they gave up a lot now that I'm looking at it, because this is a team who's not done rebuilding. Would have liked to have that 2024 first round pick to address another position of need, but undeniably this is a massive splash, Randy.
Yeah, what a night for the Texans. They're going to be talking later tonight. The players, they'll have them on a Zoom, and I know you'll try to track them down as well there in Kansas City. So we'll let you get going there in Kansas City. Special thanks to Aaron Wilson as well at NRG Stadium. Ari in Kansas City with photographer Adrian Crooks. James Perry at NRG Stadium with Aaron. Alex Marino here at Miller Outdoor Theater. And special thanks to all the crew back at the station at KPRC Channel 2 for all the help as well. That's going to do it for our Texans Draft Live special from Miller Outdoor Theater. Texans making a splash in the NFL Draft, taking number 2, CJ Stroud, number 3, Will Anderson. Coverage continues over the air, KPRC 2, 2+, and Click2Houston.com. So long from Miller Outdoor Theater.